Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I've decided that my recent review of Shin Godzilla really needs an addendum so I can further explain my thoughts.
Full disclosure, my initial review was written and recorded immediately after watching Shin Godzilla for the first time, which resulted in two things. First and foremost, it meant my disappointment was still fresh, and thus I was a bit more emotional and a bit harsher in that video than I am in others. Second, it meant I didn't have as much time to fully process some of my thoughts, so there were certain critiques which I later realized weren't properly explained.
By this point, I've had the opportunity to watch the movie again, as well as process both my own thoughts and the thoughts of the people who left comments on my video. Ergo, I've decided an addendum is required.
Now make no mistake, folks, I have not changed my mind about Shin Godzilla. I still don't like it, so if you're expecting any full retractions of statements from my original video, I'm sorry to disappoint.
The one thing I will kind of retract was when I said Shin Godzilla doesn't deserve to be counted as equal to the other Godzillas. That was a bit harsh. He's still my least favorite version of Godzilla, mind you, but saying he doesn't deserve to be counted as Godzilla was reactionary and unprofessional, and for that I apologize. In fact, as a show of good faith, I'll refer to him as Godzilla instead of Shin Godzilla for the remainder of this video.
I must also stipulate that, as before, I am not attempting to dictate how you should feel about this movie or make you feel inferior for liking it.
This is still ultimately just my own opinion, and if you disagree, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify a couple of points that I didn't really articulate properly the first time around.
First and foremost, the plot. I expressed my frustration with putting the focus on the political side of the film, as well as the ineffectual nature of the government on display in the first half.
The way I phrased things in the original review might have made it sound like I missed the point the movie was trying to make, which, to be clear, is not the case.
The whole thing is meant to be a political commentary, and draws quite heavily from how poorly the Japanese government responded to various disasters in recent years. In particular, heavy inspiration for both the political side and the kaiju attacks came from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster of 2012 and the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami of 2011. Furthermore, the commentary expands to note how the nation of Japan has spent most of its time bowing to the wills of other nations, and the only way it will ever prosper, especially in times of crisis, is to stand on its own.
Not a bad attempt at commentary, and as I mentioned, not the first time a kaiju movie has dabbled in politics. I completely understand what Shin Godzilla was trying to do, but I still don't like it. Now, the question is, why don't I like it? I suppose part of the reason might be because it's a very specific commentary on the Japanese government, and being an American, I don't necessarily know all the ins and outs of Japanese politics. But I feel like saying that and having it be my only reason would be more dismissive than legitimate critique. Besides, stuff being inherently Japanese hasn't prevented me from enjoying previous Godzilla movies. No, I'm not going to hang my hat on that specific argument as the whole reason. I have two other reasons instead.
First of all, as stated, it's frustrating. I know that's the point, but that doesn't change the result.
You ever watch a movie with a character who's really annoying, but when you complain about that character being annoying, one of the first things people say in defense of it is that he's supposed to be annoying? Well, yeah, that's the intent, but does that stop him from being annoying? No. Annoying is annoying, right? Likewise, frustrating is frustrating, and that's the case with Shin Godzilla. So, I guess you could say I think the movie does this part too well.
Moreover, I feel the portrayal of the characters hurts the plot significantly. Quick recap in case you forgot or are just joining us, my problem with the human cast of Shin Godzilla is that they exist only to advance the plot and get very little development beyond that. Hardly any time at all is devoted to telling us who they are, why we ought to care about them, or what they hope to do beyond stopping the monster.
I bring this up because Shin Godzilla is clearly aiming to be a political thriller. But the thing about political thrillers is that the best of them are character-driven, not plot-driven. Look at such movies as 13 Days, The Manchurian Candidate, Capricorn 1, All the President's Men, or heck, even Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
These 5 movies are political thrillers, but they're also all character-driven. Each one devotes a lot of time to establishing the characters and getting the audience invested in them, even the 2 that are based on real events.
This is important because for the vast majority of people all over the world, politics are boring. As such, in a political thriller, we won't care about what's happening if we don't care about who it's happening to.
In Shin Godzilla, the focus is on the what more than the who, and the what is just so dry and convoluted that it's hard for me to get invested at all. I can't say I would have shed a tear if any of these characters had died. Heck, the original Prime Minister does die halfway through the film, and it barely even registered with me.
I hope that better explains my position on the plot, and by extension the characters. The next thing I wanted to expand upon was my feelings on the music. Now, to be clear, it's good music all the way around. I can even recognize that Early Morning from Tokyo is a good piece of smooth jazz, even though I still say it completely disrupts the tone. That doesn't mean, however, that I think the music, aside from that, is very well implemented, and this is where my expansion is needed.
Let me start with Persecution of the Masses, because I admit I made a tiny mistake in my original review.
Originally, I said this.
Persecution of the Masses would have been great for dramatic scenes of Shin Godzilla killing the fleeing people of Tokyo, but instead it plays over rapidly cut scenes of the characters interpreting the Japanese constitution, and it doesn't fit at all.
Yeah, I should have specified what I wanted to see was Godzilla's 4th form terrorizing the masses to this music.
Technically, it does play over shots of Godzilla attacking Tokyo, but it's the 2nd form we're seeing.
So for all intents and purposes, I got what I said I wanted. But I wasn't wrong when I said the music plays over shots of people interpreting the Japanese constitution. In this case, my problem lies entirely with the technical side of things.
When Persecution is playing over these dramatic shots of Godzilla slithering down the street or the panicked shots of people fleeing, it really works. Granted, I still think this form looks like a rubber chicken, but a kaiju attack is a kaiju attack. But then the movie switches from these dramatic shots to these rather plain and occasionally head-scratching shots of the political frustration, and it doesn't fit as well.
What I'm trying to say is that the music and the sequence don't feel synchronized. Instead, it feels like they just picked a spot for the music to start playing, and then they just let it run until it stopped. Kind of like what I did with the music for my Q&A special. I'm not proud of that choice, by the way, but I've learned my lesson for the next time, I swear.
Then there's Who Will Know, which requires a lot of attention.
Lots of people have pointed out to me that this song is written from Godzilla's perspective, and thus provides us insight into his character, and I believe them. I still think it would have been better served for the finale given its operatic tone and funeral dirge music and lyrics, but whatever. So, this song gives us an insight into Godzilla's character in the film. But upon reflection, I've decided that actually doesn't win the movie points in my book. I know that sounds a bit baffling, but just stick with me as I explain.
I remind you that, for my own part, I see no evidence of personality in Godzilla as he is portrayed on screen. All he does is walk forward. I can usually discern a lot about a kaiju's personality in any given film based on body language and, depending on the movie's budget, facial expressions. I don't get either of those from this Godzilla. Maybe you do, but I don't. So, this song is our only unambiguous insight into the monster as a character.
I feel that this was a mistake. Unless you're making a musical, an opera, or a concept album, you really shouldn't confine everything we know about a character to a single song.
Do you remember Disney's animated Tarzan movie? Yeah, I don't blame you if you don't, but I bring it up for a reason. One common criticism leveled against it is how the songs which play over certain scenes, as performed by Phil Collins, tell us what to think and feel rather than let the scenes and characters speak for themselves. And I have to agree, that is a problem.
Now, I like Phil Collins, with Genesis or solo, and any one of the songs from the Tarzan soundtrack is good in its own right. But when placed in the context of the Tarzan movie proper, it becomes clear that these songs are being used as shortcuts. More to the point, they're breaking the golden rule of filmmaking. Show, don't tell.
I feel the same thing is in effect with Shin Godzilla. The movie doesn't show us the monster's personality through his on-screen actions, but instead decides to tell them to us through a song.
A song which, incidentally, isn't very easy to understand even without the dialogue and sound effects playing over it.
Combine this with the fact that, again, I really can't see any evidence of what the song expresses present in Godzilla, and I can only conclude that this was a bad creative choice.
So by this point, I bet you're all probably wondering if I have anything positive at all to say about Shin Godzilla. Well, having reflected on it a little, I actually do. I've already mentioned I like the soundtrack, but there are other good things to mention beyond that.
Well, I can't deny that the special effects in this movie are really good. I'm dead serious, I can only think of a couple shots where the CGI doesn't work, and they're all relatively brief. For as dull, jarring, and occasionally baffling as the cinematography is on the human side of the movie, the cinematography is great whenever Godzilla himself is on screen. For as one-dimensional as the human characters are, the actors playing those characters are clearly giving it everything they've got, and I always appreciate when actors don't phone in their work on account of the material. And I will admit, even though I still have issues with some of the aesthetic choices, I understand the thought process that went into designing each of Godzilla's forms. And when taken on their own merits, I may eventually develop a soft spot for them. I still have a lot of issues with them, though.
I hope this has helped to clarify my thoughts on Shin Godzilla. Now again, if you enjoy this movie, that's great. Even my own mood has begun to mellow towards it, but I still can't say I like it. Wish I could, but I can't say it. What I can say, however, is thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Whether you agree with me or not, thank you for taking the time to at least hear me out. I really do appreciate it. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer, signing off. Well, nothing left to do now but compare Shin Godzilla to the legendary Godzilla, as I originally said I would do. But I bet none of you are prepared for how I'm going to do it.